Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It's Tuesday. It's OCTA Day, and OCTA every week is a very comprehensive tour of all things finance, crypto, macro, on-chain, charts, you name it. So that's kind of what we do here. It's also good news, bad news, ugly news. And I know the markets are hard for you out there, but the way I view the markets is I didn't think I'd get a chance to buy into certain names at these prices ever again. And I see that as a gift. So that's the way you need to view these things. Now, over the last 6 months, we saw the most incredible gains in some altcoins. Mind-blowing stuff. But much of that was erased in the last 1 to 2 weeks for a whole host of different reasons. We have macro reasons, Fed reasons, war reasons, congestion reasons, etc. We'll talk about some of that today as well. But let's jump in. Crypto market cap is still 2.25 trillion. Volume again, monstrous. Let's see if it's a good ETF day that'll float Bitcoin. But I think Bitcoin is putting in a pretty solid bottom around that 62K range. Fear and greed is down to 65, which is okay. ETH is just hanging around 3,000. Dominance, etc. Whatever. Who cares? Anyway, let's jump in. We have 50 slides to cover. And this is edutainment. I will go fast. Shout out to Patreon that make all of this possible. I appreciate everybody in there. This is from Salem Slood. I'm really enjoying Patreon since I joined a few months back. Well, welcome in to the team. Non-stop, 24/7, 7 days a week, action. Now we start with the ugly news. It's quite a bit this week, so brace yourselves. First of all, we have to talk about this fellow. His name is Jerome Powell. And basically, if you look at his face, it's like, we're not winning the war on inflation. Despite he says the economy is fairly strong, the latest data shows no progress on inflation this year. And the 12-month core inflation was little changed in March compared to forecasts. The Fed got it wrong as well. Their data is wrong. And while the Fed took a cautious approach to avoid interacting or overreacting to last year's declines, recent data did not inspire any confidence. And they say it's time needed for further policy work with these high rates, which are taking the U.S. interest on debt to $2 trillion, and the deficits are exploding. They're adding billions of dollars every day in debt. It's kind of crazy as far as I'm concerned. And as I've always said, the Fed do not control inflation. 40% of inflation is driven by oil. Do they control the price of oil? No. We'll talk more about the oil as well towards the very end of the show. Some good news. Let's talk about some of the big unlocks and the ugly news as well. ApeCoin. This thing rains coins all the time. Another 2.5% unlocks like every week. Render has a tiny 0.2% unlock, so it's not something we worry about too much. AXIE Infinity, another 7.6% unlock. Again, it's a raining coins. Hallelujah. No, you don't want to be part of that. Sorry for my very bad singing. Manta, God knows what that is. 9% unlock. IMX, 2.4%. Pixel, 7%. A little bit from Algorand as well, kind of like Render. Very small stuff. But I've been calling things like Axie Infinity and ApeCoin kind of garbage because of tokenomics for the longest time. And you get these Axie holders and they get really upset. Or the ApeCoin holders. Let's look at just some perspective. We built this model. It took us a year and a half. It has a ton of technology built into it. We call it ATR. And it was devised to identify, the original vision I had was to identify zombies quickly. You know where you are in the macro sequence compared to other assets. This is Axie Infinity. Cash grab numero uno. No, there's not. There's many cash grabs out there. But anyway, literally, we're a year and a half into a bull market. And we're at level 0. It's a complete zombie. ApeCoin. I've been making fun of that for a long time. Ape $ hit. It is an Ethereum-based token linked to the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And it's crashed hard over the past week and the past year, etc. I think it fell over 30 to 50% over the last 7 days. And it's been pummeled 75%. Since last April. Anyway, if you are holding these NFTs, you begin to realize, all right, So I don't touch NFTs and I don't touch memes for a reason. They are lethal. Even the best assets in the world can rip your face off. We'll talk more about one of those in a second too. So just be careful out there, everybody. Markets are tough. Now, speaking of probably, I believe, to be the best company on the planet by far. Okay, I've been studying this thing since 2017. And, we one of the things as well, it doesn't bother me that these things are weak because I know they won't be one day. But markets are completely irrational. When you look at the headlines for Tesla, yes, it's been rough. Tesla's plunging again, where it's headed. Elon Musk, Tesla is having a brutal 2024. How it all went wrong. The Cybertruck has been shot, beaten, but can Tesla's Cybertruck beat its biggest rivals? Of course it can. It's 100 times better than any other rival car out there. And then Chinese rival from BYD is building their own Cybertruck. They're so far ahead, it's not even funny. And this little conversation sums it up, written by me in response to Sanjay as well. The top piece is Sanjay owned. But JP Morgan, kick it in the, wherever. But I just flippantly say everybody is obsessed with auto margins for Tesla. Literally, Q1 auto margins. They're anything the market is thinking about, Wall Street, the analysts. And meanwhile, Tesla develops a self-driving car. I mean, the world is stupid. But, again, the silver lining I see, it makes it easier for us to get ahead, actually. So we should be happy. 3.5 years ago, Tesla was at $400. They have way more now than I ever imagined possible. And it's less than $160. And we're getting a second bite of the apple that we had last year when it fell down to $104, $106. So again, the markets are crazy. Now, let's look at some other assets. Let's talk about the 60/40 portfolio. It's still dying. The 60/40 has never done this bad since the year 1930. Nearly 100 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. So if you still think bonds are your thing, when you have brilliant names like Tesla not doing well. Anyway, doesn't matter. The point is, the cream will float to the top. Meanwhile, there are undulations, and Tesla, as they say themselves, they're between growth curves, but this one will be exciting. And maybe, I'm hoping that right at the time when Tesla's ready to pounce, crypto will be out of steam. What a perfect time to rotate. That's kind of my master game plan. Anyway, 2024 Dopamine Culture. I came across this slide in my reading very early this morning, and it's how the world has changed from athletics. In the old days, we played a sport. I did. Played a lot of sports. And then fast modern culture, you watch the sport. I don't watch too much, although I did have a guilty pleasure on Saturday night watching something called 300. Not the movie, by the way. And then the dopamine culture, people gamble on a sport. And then you look at journalism, goes from newspapers to multimedia to clickbait. Videos go from film and TV to video to reels of short videos. Now, people only have a 20 to 30 second attention span. You're not going to get them sitting down for a 3-hour movie anytime soon. Let me see what else we got. Music, albums, tracks, TikToks, images, view on a gallery wall, in a museum, view on the phone. Now you scroll on the phone because who's got time to view? Communication, handwritten letters, then voice, email, memos, and now it's short text. Who leaves detailed voicemails? I'd like to know if you do. And relationships, courtship, marriage, and then sexual freedom, and now you swipe on an app. By the way, the Japanese marriage rate just hit an all-time low. Ties into maybe some of this dopamine culture we're seeing, but the world is changing very fast, so be prepared. Now, time for some bad news, which is a lot better than the ugly news. Let's jump in. First of all, the crypto market over the last 7 days, divided by Bitcoin. It has been a brutal week. Sol down 26%, and lots of deep red. Tons of names in the top 50, top 100, down more than 30% this week. Now, what's crazy about the next chart? Check this. Everybody's freaking out about Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin right now as you speak, let's check on the price. It's probably going up. 63,400 this morning. We're buying at 61.7. Okay. Looks like we did bottom nicely at that 62 level. Remember, we are coming into the halving. All right. This is definitely the last dip before the halving. There's not many things I'm sure of, but again, unless of course things escalate with the war, that puts a big lid on things. But anyway, let's move to this. Since I did this exactly 7 days ago, Bitcoin's probably now at break even. It hasn't even changed, because when I took the screenshot like half an hour ago, it was 62.7. Now it's 63.450. So it's gone up nearly $800. Anyway, crazy times. But the point though is the altcoins are smashed. I always say you're going at the risk curve on altcoins. Some got murdered. ICP, Polkadot, Aptos, Chainlink, all down over 30%. Solana down 26%. Since I've done this, actually, Solana has rebounded a bit too. But that was a nice gift, another buying opportunity as well to jump into these things. If you missed the $8 buying opportunity, remember, some perspective of where things have come from in a very short window of time. They'll always take a breather. And as I say, people asked me this question earlier today. It was, so if Bitcoin has fallen nearly 20%, how come the alts are over 30 or 40% off their all-time highs? I always say, if stocks fall by 10%, Bitcoin will probably fall by 20%, and alts will do double that. So think double, double, double. You double from the stock market fall to Bitcoin, 10 to 20%, and then you double again. 20% becomes 40% for the alts. That's just how it works. But the returns on the other way up are the same. They double. So alts will also outperform on the way up, but underperform on the way down. Okay, so I want to remind people of that. Now, fear and greed down to 65. Some people like that because when we were in the 80s, 82s, 84s, that's kind of steamy for this stage of the actual bull market. Last week was 81. So I'm kind of glad we're a little more down to earth, more steady Eddie as you go. Bitcoin monthly returns down 11%. And I did say it would turn positive in April. I'm still sticking to that because we got 14 days left. Okay. So remember, April is historically very good, and we have the halving. So don't, this is not the time to be afraid. Okay. This is the time when you do what I say, running into burning buildings. You wait. That's why we hoard cash. And also there was another headwind I forgot to mention too, is tax selling. Probably a bit of that there. But anybody who had a significant amount to sell to pay their taxes, they normally plan very well ahead. So I always leave double the allocation and wait for my tax return to come back because it's very complicated. And I discovered it was half of what I actually owed because I forgot I made a lot of payments during the year. So anyway, that can be good. So people who have a lot of money to deploy are normally very good tax planners and normally hedge the upside. So that whole tax selling thing, I don't expect at this stage of the game. Next year, if the bull market's crazy and people are making millions, yes, they're going to have to sell, but not at this stage. My personal opinion. Now, let's talk about this. I did share this earlier this morning. This is derisking in one image. That's kind of what happened. The war situation, war fears, spooked a lot of people. So they hit the pause button. Now, apparently, I don't want to jinx it, so touch wood. Apparently, there may, hopefully, fingers crossed, be no retaliation. Expect it, even if it does happen. I hope it'll be short-lived. But let's pray for peace. And ETH Bitcoin crushed. Ethereum has lost out bad for the first time ever in history. Normally in previous cycles, ETH far outperforms Bitcoin, but this time is different. In fact, of the top 50 cryptos, only 6 have beaten Bitcoin year to date, which is a stunning statistic. Now, let's talk about Polkadot. Polkadot it's been one of these things that's been very vexing to many people out there. They do huge amounts of development. They're supposed to have the most amazing layer 0, etc., etc., but there's no adoption. So drop me a comment below. I'm interested because you see all these little chains. They sometimes sponsor Formula One cars and other things. I see the logos on the vehicles. But here, Polkadot is eyeing a nearly $9 million sponsorship deal with Lionel Messi's Inter Miami. I think, I could be wrong, I think that's a soccer game, which is European football, not American football. But really, do you think people would use the chain if they saw Polkadot in a soccer shirt? I don't know. I think it's desperation for adoption. Why don't they take that $9 million and build a dApp that people will use? That's how you get adoption. But what do I know? I'm just a guy on the internet. Stock market. Also, we're still in the bad news category. Red across the board. Nvidia and United Healthcare. The only two green spots that I see. Everything else kind of flat or smashed. So it was ugly. And much of that is driven by the Fed fears that they're not going to cut. The market was hoping for a June-July cut. Now they think that might be off. But we'll see. European Central Bank, as I covered this morning, is looking to cut pretty soon. Will the Fed follow? Probably. They normally do things in cahoots. We'll see. Also, global liquidity. Bad news. It's heading down. Not too dramatically, but if you look at global M2 money supply year over year, down 0.5%, month over month, down 0.21%, and 30-day change down 0.28%, and US net liquidity up 2.5%, but it's not hitting your pockets, and global central bank assets down 7%. So not exactly perfect, but money printing is happening. But it's done in a stealth manner, so you're not exactly seeing it. But it will trickle out. Now, if you want a recap of any of my videos, check out these things. They're Substacks written by the community, and they come out every day, 10 cents a day. You get all the slides, you get podcasts, you can listen to it at the gym, etc. Thank you all for doing that, the team that are behind that too. Now, time for the good news. Woohoo! Let's look at some crypto stats. Since I started doing this, it's exactly 6 months since I very first published these crypto stats. I can't believe time has gone so fast. But back then, 6 months ago, crypto market was 1.3 trillion. Now it's 2.312 trillion. It's up $1 trillion in 6 months. That is massive, ladies and gentlemen. Users have nearly doubled, nearly 10 million daily active users across all chains. And about 1.5 million of them are on one chain. And you've got 40 million transactions going to 75 million transactions. So the cryptoverse is humming along very nicely. Just a report. 3 days, 3 hours, and we are halving. And I am very excited to see what happens after the halving. If history repeats, it's going to be bonkers. And it probably will. Now, money flow. We did have that week last week. Sorry for saying that. The first week was with an A, by the way. Digital asset products, minor outflows, only 120 million last week. Investors are worried about what's going on in the macro. They're worried about the tension in the Middle East. They're worried about a whole bunch of stuff. When investors are worried, the first reaction they have is stop, move to cash, hit the pause button. And that often is the wrong reaction. But humans are not logical. Just want to share that. No offense to humans out there, by the way. Flows by asset. Again, the 110 or whatever out of Bitcoin. You can see them nasty, nearly 30 million out of Ethereum. 3.6 out of Solana. Again, probably some congestion fears. They have gone mostly away, and a big release coming this week. And what else? Let me see. Litecoin, 1.6 million. And short Bitcoin, people went short again. I expect that to go to zero because now we're at the bottom. So you hedge when you're at the top, not at the bottom. Let's look at the top 50 last 90 days. Something wrong with this chart from the alt season index because Pepe somehow got skewed. But either way, the percentages are correct. I checked them. But over the last 90 days, Bitcoin is down 6% in 90 days. And that gives you perspective. People are thinking the world is ending. It's only down 6%, but some of the other names are all across the board at the bottom of the list. You got Rune, Uniswap, Injective, The Graph, Avalanche, Optimism, Render, all doing badly. Those I still hold. I still have a little bit of Render, a little bit of Injective. So, things, but again, they've been bonkers for the last year and a half. So that's just how it works. Drawdowns covered this morning. Bitcoin drawdowns are far less than previous cycles. So again, people, don't freak out. And Bitcoin's journey on the ATR model, despite everything that's gone on. This is basically since 2023. It was at layer 0. It hit a brand new layer 6. When the purple line goes up, it sets a new all-time high and everything recalculates. And now we're still between layer 5 and layer 6. So Bitcoin is very, very much alive. And I still don't understand how people are so freaked out by the price of Bitcoin right now, 3 days before the halving. I don't get it. I have never been, by the way, more bullish on Bitcoin, probably in my life. And I've been in it since 2017. So 7 years, not bad. Moto, thank you for coming. Now, this is kind of a crazy stat here too. You know, I talk a lot about Mr. 100 and I cover it every day. Follow me on Patreon to see all of the activities. Just before I went, they bought another 100. So they bought 200 this morning, another 100 a few hours later. It's 300 today. That's 1,700 in the past 3 days. And Mr. 100 bought 7,650 Bitcoin in the last 30 days. You know what's crazy about that? ARK Invest is the third largest new ETF. That's double. Mr. 100 bought double what ARK ETF bought in Bitcoin in 30 days. Compare one to the other. It's insane. This is a serious stacker. Also, they were wallet number 14, then 13, then 12. They just became wallet number 11 right now. Soon to break into the top 10. I reckon very shortly if this buying spree continues. All season. It is Bitcoin season. We're at 39. We did dip very strongly there, but I do expect the alts to rebound. They will rocket up soon. So this is the time to stack when you buy things like Solana at 130. You know it's going back to 230. It's a good deal. So it's worth it. And one of the things people say, why do you always talk about Solana? I talk about what I believe are the best assets. The MicroStrategies, the CleanSparks, the Bitcoins, the Solanas, the Teslas. They won't all go up at the same time, but most of them will. And then another funny question I got. So you got this stock called MicroStrategy. It goes from 160 to 2,000. It falls to 1,400. Again, guess what people do? They freak out. Ooh. Anyway. These are volatile assets, but they're also crazy alpha assets. So I always warn you, wear your seatbelt when you're in disruption, but the returns will always be higher than normie type stocks. So here we are, daily active users by chain. Top of the list right now, April 15th is 1.3 million people in Solana. Number 2 is Bitcoin, 477,000. 3 is Ethereum, 422,000. ZK Zinc Era, 348. Base, 321. ARB 316, etc. And you go all the way down the line to where it doesn't really matter. You see Polkadot there, 6,000 users. So we did talk about Polkadot earlier. Again, adoption data is what we do here. Let's look at Solana as well. Where does it stand on the ATR model? And this is my go-to to figure out exactly where things are. And we bounced right off level 3 to almost to the dollar, and we're going back to level 6 soon, which is north of $200. And this model is right 88% of the time. And again, it's uncanny how things do bounce off these layers. I am a little bit mad I missed the sell signal at the top because I am not looking at this all the time. And here we are. So that is Solana, and that's perspective of where we are. Again, level 3. Going back to 200, level 7, which is north of $200. Now, Stablecoin on Solana had a monster flow of over $166 million in one day, April 13th. That's the third largest inflow in Solana history, and it's bonkers. So adoption is crazy. And good news, there's Super Soul Man. Thank you for coming. One thing that did happen over the last week, though, the bleed from Ethereum funds to Solana blockchain has slowed to a net $11 million. This is the lowest we've seen in probably 6 months. So that's something that is probably due to the congestion. It's harder to transfer stuff. Maybe that's part of it, but as usual, every week we will track what's going on with the bleed to the black hole, as I call it. And for those of you who do like the NFT stuff or meme coins, not NFTs, Sol whales scoop up a ton of the Solana memes that are out there right now per look on chain. They are grabbing them because they believe now is the time, as a lot of meme coins fell out of bed too. And the new Saga will be dropping over 100 new drops, and each airdrop is grouped in what they call vaults, and that feature will have multiple projects giving out various prizes. There'll be games, and this one's interesting this time because the Saga is dropping in kind of a cross-chain manner because they're working with an Avalanche first-person shooter called Shrapnel. There's an Ethereum metaverse game called The Sandbox, the Ethereum racing game Wilder World, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And the Saga team take immense pride in fostering collaboration cross-chain because crypto together is working together stronger. And a big focus on these airdrops will be on things called like Web3 gaming, which I know nothing about. So if you have a Saga phone, though, you might get some good free airdrops. And in full disclosure, I do. Let me see. Amazon, this is interesting, quietly built a huge ad business silently. If you look at the ad business for YouTube, it's monstrous. It's $9.2 billion. Amazon, as a little sideline business, now have $14.7 billion of advertising revenue. And Walmart, $0.9 billion. Snap, $1.4 billion. Amazon is a monster. Not only do they have names like AWS, now their ad business, and of course the retail business and logistics business, kind of powerful. I thought that was stunning. Now, what is the Fed doing? Well, US housing starts have collapsed in March, their biggest drop since the C-19 lockdowns. And that's an ugly situation. And that's because nobody can afford to buy. Therefore, nobody is building. Directly related. In fact, I read an article yesterday about these ghost towns in Austin, Texas. There was a concern that Austin, Texas wouldn't have enough housing, so they overbuilt. Now people can't afford to pay for them, nor can the builders afford to finish them because they are out of money. So it's a very ugly situation. And two other things that are hitting hard too to those in real estate. First of all, the chart on the left from the Bitcoin layer. Mortgage demand remains very low. Again, nobody is refinancing at 7.3% or getting a mortgage at 7.3%. Nobody. The whole mortgage industry is dead, done and dusted. And then you've got your delinquency rates are on the rise. Not only can people not afford new mortgages, they can't even afford to pay their existing ones. And this is all due to these high interest rates. Thanks, JP. Smashing stuff. Now, I thought this was funny. The reason I shared this, I put this together yesterday, and it gave me an idea. It actually incentivized me to buy Bitcoin for the first time since 42,000. Because I was thinking, well, sub 62, whatever. That seems like a good time to allocate, but not as a speculative vehicle, but to do things like allocate to Bitcoin, to do things like pay off mortgages. I've got some 10-year fixed interest onlys, 3 or 4 of them coming up due in about 8 years. So I'm thinking, I'm going to take my conservative price prediction and get that amount in Bitcoin. So I'll be able to pay off. I'll be able to make the investment today into Bitcoin to pay off the mortgages in the future. Also allocate towards Cybertruck. So it's $120,000 car. Allocate Bitcoin now, a certain percentage to be able to pay that off by just selling the Bitcoin in the future whenever I come through. This was interesting. Again, the car, the number one selling car in the world, is also used to be a $50,000 car. Now in the US, after tax credits, it's $36,000. That is 0.56 of a Bitcoin. Call it half a Bitcoin. What I think is interesting about this is if you look at the price of this car in Bitcoin going back time, like what a $50,000 car would cost, it was only many multiples of Bitcoin. Now it's not. Same thing with houses. So the reason I share this is to think in terms of Bitcoin as a savings vehicle. Okay, so allocate to Bitcoin to pay off or buy lifestyle items in the future. And that's part of my policy. Now, dominance time. This was also very interesting. You see Bitcoin is now at 53% dominance. And that is very high for this level of the cycle. You've got altcoins in yellow, kind of small. Solana there in purple, growing. It's about 3% dominance right now. Binance as well, depending on the day, about that too. USDT Tether is in there as well. And ETH, the big orange piece. But you can see just in this chart alone how Bitcoin has completely clobbered ETH over time. So expect that yellow at the top to grow as we get through the Bitcoin halving as well. Now, another final chart for the day, everybody. Sorry, like 50 things to show you all. I thought all was very pertinent and relevant. And a big thank you to the team behind me to get all this together. The US is now producing more oil than any country has in history. I found that startling when I saw it. US is now producing 13.3 million barrels a day, which is, I don't know, good thing, bad thing, but it's not keeping down inflation. So think about that, JP. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Appreciate you all being here. Bitcoin, $63,700. And what's Solana? Well, 137. Not bad. Thank you all. See you all tomorrow for the Bitcoin Daily, first thing in the morning when I get all the data together. And have a great day, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.